body for the outdoor sector, and we do a lot of work for the sector to make sure we can give them the tools and the resources they need to do their job the best. But really why we exist is we're enriching communities by connecting them with nature and leading them to healthier, more fulfilled lives. So everything that we do, we aim for that exact goal. And there's a lot of different things we do, which you can see on screen there. Mostly of late, it has been in the advocation area. But look, I'm going to introduce a very special guest because he's coming live to us from, I believe, the east coast of the USA, where it is very, very dark at night there right now, and we want to let him go to bed. So can I please introduce Noah Wilson, and I'll let him introduce himself and why I brought him on today, and then I'll hand straight over to you, Noah.
Thank you, Laurie. Yeah, hey, my name is Noah Wilson. I'm the director of the Growing Outdoors Partnership, and also I'm director of sector development for Mountain BizWorks. Mountain BizWorks is a community development financial institution, basically a nonprofit bank for small businesses. So I kind of have that hat where I'm looking at how do we grow the outdoor recreation, local food, and craft economies for kind of a 25 county region in North Carolina in the U.S., which is basically like about 1 million people. And it's a kind of there's a lot of other East Coast states about the size of our region. So we're a pretty big area. And we really are looking at, we see that outdoor recreation is a huge driver for our local economy and for not just the economy, but for community wellness and for the overall, kind of image of our region, both externally, but also internally. A lot of this is about also the pride of place for our people here. We recognize that we're a very rural area. A lot of our counties, a lot of our regions are, 10,000 people, 20,000 people in them. So we have a lot of kind of dispersed population. And a lot of folks, when we would go out and start doing this project, we'd ask them, I kind of be like a secret shopper in some ways. I'm like, okay, so, I go out to a coffee shop or a restaurant or a gas station, and I'd say, hey, so what's there to do around here? And I get a very common response. And that response would be nothing. And I would, raise my eyebrows knowing, because I'm the secret shopper, right, that there's 3 beautiful waterfalls within a mile of this place and miles of trout streams and acres upon acres of just gorgeous backcountry and climbing and hiking and mountain biking. And I go, okay, we have some work to do here. And so we have a project called the Growing Outdoors Partnership that kind of spawned out of that recognition that we have a lot going on here. We do have some great recreational assets that are well known. There's some major mountain biking meccas in this area, including the city of Brevard, which is a major mountain bike hub, and a lot of great paddling, some of the kind of first whitewater paddling in the country, and some of the kind of foundational moves were developed down the road from here in Bryson City at the Nantahala Outdoor Center. But again, there's a lot of bigger picture work needed to grow the industry and to really bring folks together to support the growth of the outdoor economy. And when we looked at the big picture view of what that meant, we took what's called a value chain approach. What are all the pieces it's going to take, all the various elements it will take to have a thriving outdoor economy? And not just, we have a lot of manufacturers here. It's one of the bigger kind of hubs in the United States, in the East Coast of the United States for outdoor manufacturing. But, looking at, all right, great. So those manufacturers and all the outfitters and guides and the kind of folks who create those experiences and the retailers, that's sort of your core of the outdoor industry supply chain, right? But there's this whole kind of food chain around them, or a food web, as it were, really, of academics and workforce development professionals. You've got folks who work like we do on entrepreneurship and access to capital, make sure folks are able to start and grow their businesses and thrive as entrepreneurs. We look at growing markets. How can we expand both national and global markets for the things that are made here and folks who are coming here? And then we connect the industry together and kind of drive economic development, really help our kind of suit and tie folks. I'm not a suit and tie person, you can see, right? So help our suit and tie folks know that, when you're talking about outdoor industry development, and you show up in a suit and tie to an outdoor economy trade show, you get some odd looks, more like this look, right? And so a lot of our work is to say, okay, folks, let's get this straight. I appreciate your suit and tie. It's an important thing to have, but this crowd is more of like shirt sleeves rolled up, right? Let's kind of be here. They want to see that you can get down in the dirt with them a little bit and go outside and play, that you care about this stuff. And so it's been a lot of fun working with economic developers to kind of get that image. And then again, to say, how do we connect the industry big picture? How do we get this whole supply chain? So we have our academics, our kind of like our capital system, our government agencies, including both the kind of more forest service, park service folks, but also the small, like the county and town, you know, councils and commissions and the staff and the state staff and all of our kind of all the folks who they speak with and all of their bosses, all aligned around this stuff. And the marketers and the accountants, right? They care too, and they matter as well. It's this whole picture and the supply chain leading up to that industry, people who are manufacturing things. And so we had started this thing called the Outdoor Economy Conference a few years ago now. And it started as a regional event, which meant it started out as just kind of for, say, a 100-mile radius of our kind of mountain region here in Western North Carolina. And that first year, we had folks from 4 states show up. We said, okay, something's happening here. And so last year in 2019, we expanded it a bit more. I've been doing a lot of consulting work and a lot of bigger work nationally on the outdoor economy and on the connections of the outdoor industry and health, among other things. And so we kind of invited all our colleagues to come join us. And we had people from 20 US states show up. And we said, all right, yeah, we found something very real here. That there's this big picture work bringing together the whole outdoor economy. Not just the little industry folks who are kind of in their usual silos, but the whole big picture where you have a table and you've got a CEO sitting next to a nonprofit director, sitting next to a state, you know, assembly person, sitting next to someone from the Forest Service, and then you've got someone who's a branding person sitting next to them. That kind of a table was a pretty common thing last year, and really you could get extremely excited about that. Yeah. It's not normal, but it should be. And so we have kind of doubled down on that event this year. Everything is in, of course, in pandemic mode, so it's all digital and all live, kind of coming to you, you know, from a web platform. And the bright side is that it means people can come from wherever they are, including apparently
Australia.
So I'm extremely excited to have y'all here. We're speaking with y'all, and basically I can walk through the Outdoor Economy Conference and some of the topics we're covering if that'd be helpful. But I'm also here to take any questions you may have about what we've been doing, what we've learned in the process.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Noah. And so everyone knows, I brought Noah on because I actually found him through some obscure searching that I did and came across this conference. And I've got to say that the topics just scream to me exactly what we're experiencing. And I've certainly registered, and I'm going to be listening very careful to the recordings because, with all due respect, I don't think 3 a.m. getting up at that hour was going to be my best look. So I'll be listening to the recordings with immense interest and really keen to hear the discussion and what's going on. But I thought it was a great opportunity because everything you just said, I think, brings home to very much what's going on here, and that connecting of economy is something that certainly we've got to do a lot better in New South Wales and ACT, but also Australia. And I know we've got some representatives here from Queensland and Victoria as well. So you're talking to half the nation at least today in the outdoor sector. So, and thank you so much for staying up and being with us today. Does anyone have any questions for Noah on the event or anything that's happening over in the US while we've got him on screen? They're all a bit quiet on a Friday morning, Noah.
And thankfully, I'm actually still wide awake. My daughter's going to bed. So if you hear random yelling in the background, that's just the baby monitor and her.
Okay, great.
But yeah, so let's walk through the topics we're covering. That might kind of prompt some things for y'all. One of them, so is we have 5 topics, kind of 5 weeks, 5 workshops. How we're running this. So every Thursday in October. So I guess it'll actually, I guess it's probably Friday for y'all at that point, or something close to it. Every Thursday in October, we have a 4-hour workshop. And the first one is on healthy communities through recreation. So understanding that there's this really strong tie between recreational activity in the outdoors and the health of our populations. And really bringing public health professionals and recreation professionals together and say, how do we kind of share funding, create mutual projects, and big picture, you know, there's some great data out there now, a lot of really solid science backing that connection between health and recreation and how much recreation improves health.
Yes.
But we have to tell those stories, right? We have to go ahead and make sure people are armed with that data and that science, so they can go and they can say, look, you know, public health funder, this is worth investing in because this is the data that shows what happens when people get outside more often. Mental health is better, physical health is better, emotional health is better, and just they're spiritually revived. It matters a lot, right?
Certainly preach the converted here.
So that's the first session. And then we're going to go to growth through diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I don't know how it is in New South Wales and Australia, but there's definitely a lot of work right here in this country and in our own spaces around what we call DEI or JEDI, depending on whether it's justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, or DEI. They kind of are used interchangeably. But we recognize that, so we're the Outdoor Economy Conference. We knew we wanted to tackle this years ago. And this was going to be the year to touch on it, but what's the kind of outdoor economy lens? And we had this realization that, honestly, we know, at least for our country, is going to be majority minority, which is kind of an ironic thing to say, right? But it's like, it's going to be less white folks than everybody else within the next 20 years. And if industries aren't adapting to that proactively and getting away from a sense that everybody who's doing it is like either like a yoga model or is, you know, like a white dude in flannel, although I am a white dude in flannel on a regular basis, right? We have to diversify the industry and be broader and more inclusive and more welcoming than that. It's a moral imperative because the benefits of recreation, as we're saying, are tremendous, but also it's an economic imperative. We know there's a lot of people who aren't buying these things and aren't going on these trips because they don't feel welcome in those spaces. And so what can we do to address that?
Wonderful. No, I'm going to have to unfortunately move on to our next topics, but did you want to say anything just to finish off?
No, I would say that it sounds like there's a lot of shared work to do across the entire globe, which is pretty exciting. And we have a national network called the State Outdoor Business Alliance Network here in the United States, and we meet on a regular basis. I'm part of that network myself. And it's been really inspiring to have colleagues from all over the country to talk with, and also into Canada. And as I was talking with Lori, I was like, man, apparently there's opportunities to talk globally about these same issues, right? Of health. Well,
you actually have the president. You have the president of the Outdoor Council of Australia on the line at the moment as well. So you're talking federally to us as well. So we'll definitely continue.
So if you have any questions, Lori has my information. You can please hold me via email anytime, or we can set up a time when we're both awake to talk anytime. And it's an honor to be here. If y'all have any questions, please reach out. And thank you so much.
That's great. Great to have you, Noah. And thank you again for joining us. And we'll be in touch. We'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Take care. Great. And our next speaker, I'm going to get quickly onto the screen because I'll do my week in review after he has spoken, and I'm reaching out to say thank you, Rod, for all the work that you have done in advocating for us in the discussions you've had. Rod, are you there?
Yeah, I am, Laurie. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks for coming along, and I'm sure everyone is behind me when they say thank you. And it's just so pleasing to see that we've got a light on the horizon to get all the schools back. So thank you for everything you've been doing, because I know you have been doing a lot behind the scenes and really taking our information to those that needed it.
Thanks, Laurie. Look, I can't take the credit. I think you guys, you've been very patient and very resilient in just waiting for things to go. It's been a bit of a hard and long journey, but I think at the end of the day, it was the Premier who all of a sudden has done a bit of a backflip and opened up a whole lot of things. Because as you noticed, the same time as we've allowed overnight camps, we've reopened to excursions and a whole lot of things within schools across the board. So it's been a bit of a waiting game, but we finally got there. So I just thank you for your patience and your understanding as we've got through it. It didn't look like it was going to happen, but at the beginning of the week, all of a sudden things just started to open up, and it's now we just have to hope caseload stays low. Everyone has a good COVID plan in place. I know I've already had schools contacting me saying, do you think we go back now, they'll reinstate our bookings? I said, give them a try. Let's see what happens. So you might start getting calls from schools wanting to squash some things in before the end of the year, all going well. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, right. And can I just quickly ask, because I know that some of the schools have already been in contact with camp providers, and I think I've got Brad on the line, who's probably a great example, where the schools are saying they're hearing that they need to follow some strict guidelines. Do you know roughly what that is, other than doing their own risk assessment?
They've got their own risk assessment. You guys have got to do a COVID safe plan, is my understanding. And there's on the health site, there's all the links to that for you to do that. And it's a matter of just in the planning of it, talking to the school and making sure the school's happy with what you have in place and that it coincides with what they've got in place. So for us, you know, they always do a risk assessment anyway, which most of you guys would have. You've got all your contingencies around hygiene and distancing and what to do in the case of COVID. Our messaging to schools is just have a think about what happens if you get a case while you're on camp. What would be the school's contingency for getting that child out of the camp and how to get the others back and all that sort of stuff. So there's a little bit of negotiating to do, but it's I'm sure we'll get there, especially with the caseload so low at the moment, and fingers crossed, touch wood. Look, the only issue I should bring up, and I don't know if it does affect anyone online, at the moment, we checked this morning, Canberra, Victoria and New South Wales and Queensland are still out at the moment. I was hoping Canberra would be included, but because it's to do with their testing regimes. So any of the sites in those areas at the moment New South Wales can't access. Marnie has assured us that she'll go back and see if she can get that sorted over the holidays, especially for Canberra. We'll try and get.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And I have been in contact with one of our own board members, who's the one of the directors of Department of Education in Canberra, and he said the same, that they're hoping to get that looked at over the next week. So hopefully we'll have some good news there.
Yeah. Anyway, but thanks, Laurie, and thank you again for your patience, guys. I know it's been a long, hard road. Hopefully things will start to pick up for you.
Yeah, great. Are you welcome to take any questions at the moment, Rod, or have you got to dash off?
No, I'll stay around.
Okay.
And take some questions, as long as they're not too hard.
Okay. Has anyone got any questions for Rod while we've got him? Sounds like you've answered everything.
Good.
No question. Okay. Great. Well, thanks again, Rod.
Right,
well,
good luck.
I'll talk to you soon. You're more than welcome to hang around, but I know you've got other things you have to get onto, so thank you.
Things. Okay, thanks, Laurie. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the year, okay?
Thank you so much. Take care. Talk soon.
Bye.
Okay, guys, so back to our agenda, and I'll do a quick week in the review before I hand over to our other guest speaker for today. It is a jam-packed day. But I believe we need to pay our respects to Carl Ronke, who passed away this week, a well-known person from the outdoor sector, who apparently, from what I've read and what I understand, obviously not knowing myself, being a newbie to the sector, but has done a lot and is a living legend as far as outdoors is concerned. Did anyone want to talk to what Carl has? Does anyone know about the work that Carl's done, and if they wanted to say anything? Okay, all right. Well, Carl apparently passed away after a long illness. So obviously our thoughts are with the family at the time, and we thank him for his contribution to the outdoor sector. So let's keep going. And the next item on the agenda is the camp pricing review. Just a reminder about that. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. I've got a great list of prices from a lot of the camps, and it's certainly very helpful in looking at the sector as a whole, but and doing the report, I want to make sure I get a big diversity as well. So if you haven't sent in your pricing for your camp facility, please do so. Just a reminder, it is confidential. I'll be filtering the content into a report. If you submit your content, you will get a copy of that report, and it's also helping the government facilities in making sure they're competitive neutral. So please let me know if you've got any concerns, or please just send them through, because that way I can include it into the report. This week I have the Kindred Members ACT Business Chamber meeting. What that means is we can raise some issues for the Chamber to take on for the state of ACT. So if anyone from the ACT has anything they'd like me to raise at that meeting, now's a good time to tell me or send me an email today. The meeting is next Wednesday. So if you could get that to me before probably Tuesday would be great, and I'll make sure I bring it up on behalf of the sector. This is a bit embarrassing to say, but we've been recognised in the Wasabi Awards, which is the Western Sydney Business Excellence Awards. And we've been nominated for business leadership in that awards program. So yeah, great accolade for the peak body. And yeah, who knows, but being a finalist is good enough in my book, so that's great, and it's credit to all of you for supporting us in this time, which has given us that accolade, so thank you very much. Mentoring program, and you might remember a couple of times I've mentioned wanting to get a mentoring program up, particularly for the youth in our sector and people that are wanting to really navigate their way through pathways and career paths in our sector. I've applied for a couple of grants, but I've got to get a bit of an indication from the sector on who wants to be involved in that mentoring program to build some supplementary content. So there is a QR code again. If you remember last week, I put some QR codes up. If you want to use your phone, you can certainly screenshot that QR code and it'll take you to that survey. What it will ask you is if you're under 25 and you want to be mentored, register your details, or if you're over 25 and want to be a mentor, you can certainly register there. So we're wanting both. We're a little bit light on the side of the mentorees at the moment. So if you know anyone under 25 that wants to either develop themselves in the sector or wants to really get into the sector, please get them onto that survey and lodge their details online. There was an article about ATVs. I don't know how many people have been aware, but there's been a few deaths recently on quad bikes, and there's an excellent article there, which I might get Leslie, if that's possible, to put that link into the chat for you, so it's a little bit easier. But yeah, if you have ATVs, please jump into that and make sure that your brands and your ATVs are in check for the safety and security of your own incidents. And the last reminder there is the free offers. So we've still got some infection control training going. The last one is on the 12th of October, but as you heard last week from Kevin, he is more than welcome to put more on if the demand is there. So if anyone hasn't registered yet and you're still wanting to, please make sure you get in touch with us and we'll put you in touch with him. So that's great. Oh, and thank you, Simone, for sending it to all the students as well. The mentoring program is perfect for the students of any of the universities or TAFEs. So that's awesome.
Laurie,
great. Yeah.
Laurie, if I may, just on the ATVs, I haven't hit up that article yet, but if I can just put to people that I had some experience in removing a fleet of ATVs for Bush Heritage Australia and doing a lot of I guess risk assessments and also capacity. You know, what are you actually trying to do? So if people, if someone has a question about what other options there are, because I actually love quad bikes. They're sometimes the perfect tool for the job. Sometimes there's something else which can be used. And if, for instance, someone wants to go to the UTVs, the covered quad bikes, I can put them in touch with the national manager for Polaris, who certainly helped us out and has a soft spot for people doing the right thing as well. So get in contact with me if they want to do that as a side conversation.
Fabulous, Troy. Thank you so much for offering that. That's great. So as you heard, if anyone has got some ATVs in their business, get in touch with Troy, and that will certainly help. Thank you very much. Okay, and just a big one which I wanted to talk about is Small Business Month, because that actually starts on the 1st of October. And to make sure that we were recognised in that we do have a lot of small businesses, I've certainly been working with the Small Business Commissioner's Office on being part of that program. And we've got 4 sessions that are solely dedicated to outdoor businesses. You can see the dates there. They're all at the same time, so that's more to help me remember because I'm losing my mind. And but they're on different dates there, and they're all different topics. So that first one, we have Paul Wade, ex-Socceroo captain, joining us about some of the challenges from a mindset perspective that small businesses go through. The 12th of October is about social media and making sure you're making the most of social media through digital. So I won't talk too much on that, but certainly that would be a really great one for any marketers out there that really want to make their social media and their presence a little bit more active. The 22nd of October is an economic development professional who's coming to talk to us about the tools that are available for businesses that really businesses have no idea about. This is something that I learned some years ago about how much is actually out there that you can use to make informed choices for your business. So Stephen's going to take us through all of those on the 22nd. And the one that perhaps I'm most excited about is the 30th of October, where we have ex-Vice President of Disney World. Oh, it's actually, what's it called? Magic Kingdom in Disney World. So he's coming to join us to talk about leadership of teams and small teams. And yeah, powerful speaker. Dan Cockrell is his name. His father was Lee Cockrell, who used to be vice president of the whole of Disney World. So they're a Disney family, and I've got a great deal of respect for Disney and what they stand for in leadership principles and customer service. So don't miss that one. I've got to say though, numbers are limited because we don't have the grand gold package in Zoom. So please, if you're interested, jump online and register. Each of those 4 have different logins because obviously numbers are limited. So please jump on, register for the ones that you're interested in, and make sure we take advantage of Small Business Month. Any questions on that, shoot them through the chat. In the interest of time, I'm going to hand over to Hope. So it's lovely to have Hope here from Chidlrens Guardian. I reached out to Hope because I found out they've got all these training things going on their website to get us all up to speed on the changes and also what we need to do in relation to Chidlrens Guardian. So Hope, can I hand over to you, and I'll let you share your screen.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Laurie, for having me. Hopefully you can all see the slideshow. And yeah, thank you so much for having me along today. And it's been really interesting just listening and hearing about what you're all up to, and obviously the stresses that have come with COVID and the challenges with that as well. So I appreciate the tough time that you've been going through. So my name is Hope Brown, and I'm the Child Safe Coordinator at the Office of Chidlrens Guardian, and I work specifically with the sport and recreation sector. And so my role is actually to build capability and raise awareness around the child safe standards. So there's 10 of those in New South Wales. And we basically work with sports from club level up to state level to implement the standards as currently best practice for keeping children safe. So when we're talking about children, we're talking about under 18s for the purpose of the standards. So I run workshops and online training. It's all free, as well as I do individualized support for businesses or for clubs, and run online training and do just sort of more tailored assistance. So if they have policies and practices they want to send through, they can email those to me, and I can sort of look at the standards and how they're going and implementing these. So I've been in this role for just over a year, and there are other coordinators for different sectors. So we have a faith-based coordinator, early education, education itself, Aboriginal agencies, out-of-home care. And so we've really seen our role morph over time. Originally, it was just about raising awareness about the standards, but now a lot of the sectors are really in the implementation stage. So this came out of the Royal Commission, and so I don't know how well versed you are in the standards, but particularly those representatives here from Victoria they've been mandatory for a while in the sport and recreation sector, so they may be really well versed in that. But New South Wales is sort of trailing behind, but definitely working towards implementing the standards. So I thought I'd just quickly talk very briefly about what we could help you guys out with. And then, yeah, if you want more information, then I think it's best for you to reach out to us. So for those that don't know, we're the Office of Children's Guardian. So there's Janet Scora, she's our Children's Guardian in New South Wales. And we basically work to improve the safety of children in New South Wales by helping organisations and employers understand the meaning and importance of being child safe. So some of you would be mostly familiar with us because of our administration of the Working with Children check, and probably a lot of you have a Working with Children check. However, we do have other functions there, as you can see, and so yeah, you can see how the child safe standards sort of fit under our functions there as well. And then some of you, because you run camps and overnight, you may be under the reportable conduct scheme, which was previously with the New South Wales Ombudsman. But the reportable conduct scheme has come over to the Office of Children's Guardian. So we host the reportable conduct scheme now as well. So if you want any more information about those changes to the reportable conduct scheme, you can check out our website as well and look at the changes to the Children's Guardian Act. And that will tell you about the changes to the reportable conduct scheme, because some of you would fall under that for the overnight support that you use as well. So here are the standards. This pretty graphic is actually purposeful in its setting out. So we think of the standards as working like a jigsaw. They're all interconnected. No one or more is less or more important than the other. They all need to be working together. So we think of the standards basically as a brick wall. And if we've got a really strong foundation, the wall is stronger. So the chance of abuse is less likely to occur for children in the organisations that we work with. And so we really need to have really strong foundations, as well as all of the standards working together. So I run, I'll talk to you a little bit about what we do, but basically I run 2-hour training sessions online for sport and recreation, and you can come along to one of those and learn all about the standards and what you can be doing. And I think a really key part of my work as a coordinator is being reflective of the sector needs. So we've found that sport and rec really love hearing from each other about what they've been doing, quite competitive, so they like to know what everyone else is up to. So yeah, we've got lots of really practical examples for you guys to take away, and then do some further research and work on your own standards and how you might be implementing them within your organisation as well. It's also, we like to say that it's likely that no one is really working from zero. It's more about formalising the current practices that you have in place and allowing yourself to kind of work towards implementing these on a continuous and ongoing process, so that the chance of abuse occurring within your organisation is really minimised. So the OCG has developed a guide. It's really detailed, and it looks at how you could be implementing the standards within your organisation. So it is generic, it's not just for sport and rec, but I think there's some really clear examples of what you might be doing. So that's free to download. It's on the website at Kids Guardian, and you can have a look through that. And I think that's probably the starting point for everyone, to have a look through and see how they're going. There's some really great sections in it that are reflective questions, and I think those are probably really helpful if you've got working groups, or you've got staff meetings, and you can go through and sort of look at maybe a standard a month or whatever it is, and you could look at those reflective questions and kind of check in with how you might be going, and then kind of formalizing any of those changes that you might need to put in place so that you are working towards each of the standards. Okay, so we've got some resources here. So I've mentioned the guide to the child safe standards. That's our kind of overarching guide for everyone, and that's a really thorough document for you to look through and see how you're going and identify any gaps that you might have. And then it would be beneficial probably for you to register for one of our webinars and come along to that as well. We do them after hours as well, for any volunteers that don't have the time to do during work hours as well. So just email me and let me know, and we can organise something for you as well. And then that's just sort of our generic flyers about the child safe standards. Standard 8 is looking at the physical risks to young people as well as online risks. So we developed the online safety resource during COVID, and a lot of the changes, obviously with people doing now providing services online and the extra challenges that come with that. So we've developed that resource as well. And then this is an implementation guide for faith-based organisations. So as I mentioned, the coordinators are very sector-led, so they will develop a resource that matches what the sector needs are. So Faith had identified they needed one of those. And then we've got an engaging sensitively with survivors of abuse. Again, that's for Faith, but I think that it has a lot of transferable information for all sectors as well. And our exciting one, so standard 2 is looking at meaningful and active participation of children and young people and how that can help to minimise risk to young people. And so we've been developing an empowerment and participation tool in partnership with the Commissioner for Children and Young People in Victoria, as well as South Australia University. So that's in current consultation draft at the moment, but that should be released hopefully by the end of the year. And we'll give you some really great examples of how you could be including young person voice in the design of your programs, or encouraging them to do really meaningful feedback for your organisation as well. So as I mentioned, we do all free, everything that we offer is free. So you can come along to our Child Safe Standards in Sport. That would be the specific training that we would love for you guys to come along to, because it's sport and recreation specific. I also have created a communities of practice. So I've got, I've had presenters from Swimming New South Wales, Cricket New South Wales and Gymnastics New South Wales talking about how they're implementing the standards. And so that's bi-monthly at the moment. So our next one is in November, but we've got recordings available as well if you want to listen into those, talking about how to make your resources young person friendly, how to be child centered. If you're setting up a youth advisory group, what does that look like? How to create the feedback loop and make sure that young people know that their involvement is really meaningful. So they've been really great as well, and we've received really awesome feedback from that as well. And then I send a monthly update, so if you want to be included on my email list, please reach out to me and you can hear about everything that's going on in the child safe space for sport and rec as well. Yeah, next steps for you guys. So I thought you can email me and I can get in contact with you and see where you're at, and then offer the best services to support you guys. The next Communities of Practice is on the 3rd of November if you wanted to be involved in that, or I can send you the recording as well. And then we also have a reporting obligations webinar, which is on the 1st of October. So if anyone needs to, most of you, of all of you, would actually fall under the obligation to report for the Child Protection Helpline, or the risk of significant harm for children and young people. If there's a criminal offence, how to report to police, how to report to DCJ or the OCG if you are in the reportable conduct scheme. So that's a really brief, I mean, it's a 1 hour overview of your reporting obligations as a sport and rec provider, but that would be really helpful, I imagine, for the work that you're doing as well. So that's on the 1st of October, and you can register through our website for that, or email me and I can send you the link. So yeah, if you wanted to come along to that, that would be really helpful. If you've got any questions about that, please let me know. And then I've also just said, download the guide, have a look through and see how you go, and keep the conversation happening in your organisations around child safe standards. For some sectors, we do anticipate that the standards will become mandatory. And so at the moment, we're working on best practice, but we're definitely encouraging everyone to get up to speed with an understanding of the standards and start working towards those. So especially those elements where you have overnight camps, or you're working with schools and things like that, it's really important that you're up to speed with the standards, because all of those education providers would also be working under those and may fall in the mandatory scheme as well. So that's my details. It's a bit small on the screen probably there, but yeah, I can also type it into the chat box so that you can access it there as well. And thank you, yeah, thank you so much for having me along, and I hope that you found that a little bit helpful.
Just awesome. Thanks, Hope. And maybe, as you say, put your email in the chat. That way people could just copy it straight from there, which would be very helpful. Can I ask you a question, Hope? What are some of the main challenges you're seeing in the sport and rec sector? Are you seeing any trends with some of the challenges the organisations are having?
Yeah, I think the large volunteer base makes the sport and recreation sector a little more challenging than other sectors. Also, I think that in relation to child protection, which we see as different, very different from child safe, because child safe is a more proactive approach, but those that have had exposure to child protection before, so they have like a level of prior knowledge, whereas sometimes just starting from afresh with the new information, it's quite challenging. Yeah, I guess resourcing as well, like COVID hit the sport and recreation sector very, very hard. And so they've been incredibly under-resourced. A lot of them have lost, I guess, membership base and things like that. So just being able to keep child safety as a priority and not see it as something that's optional, and see it as part of their return to sport plans. You know, having it as a topic of conversation is about keeping children safe all the time, and this is the framework to do that. So yeah, I think there's some of the challenges, but everyone is really eager and open to learn, and I think this sector really loves to share resources and is really, really open to new ideas. And so yeah, it's been a real pleasure seeing that all come together over the last year.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Hope at all? Are they seeing any challenges in this area with their own business, or do you need any clarification? There's nothing in the chat. Does anyone want to speak?
And yeah, if anyone wants to send me an email with questions privately, that's also fine. So that's good.
That's
Thank
great.
you for
Thank
having
you
me
so much.
along.
Thanks for joining us. You're more than welcome to stay around, but we know you've probably got other things to do. So thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Guys, I just wanted to go back to the earlier discussion on camps resuming for Term 4. And I suppose I just wanted to reiterate that, as Rod said, that we've got an incredible responsibility now to look at our COVID plans. And as you know, there's some templates out there. There's the OCA template. There's also the Service New South Wales templates that have been recommended on the press release even, being the caravan park and the accommodation COVID safe plans and templates. So please, can you check your COVID plans against those? Just make sure that you're taking all the precautions necessary. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that if we do have an outbreak in a camp facility, it's going to be Tangara all over again, and possibly even worse. So we're all going to suffer if one has a case that's not controlled and dealt with in the most efficient way. So I'm really keen to hear from any of you on any of the things that you're putting into place or getting ready for in this. But I can't stress enough that it's everyone's business now, that we need to get back to business, but we need to do it in a COVID safe way. So look, I'm going to open it up for comments and questions, and hand over to anyone that wishes to speak. Greg, did you want to just talk to the ACA COVID plan?
Yeah, no, I just got Scouts Victoria had a look at that one during the week, and they've issued a new plan completely on Tuesday of this week. So the old template no longer complies with Victorian law. There's a new one that has to come into place.
Right.
So I just threw it out there that the new one came out. We've already updated ours, obviously. Scouts Victoria have sent one around to all of our campsites, and they've created one for that. So that's there.
Great.
For the on a different note, the Business Victoria, for any other camps in Victoria, have opened up the grant program to regional school camps to apply for funding for any cancellations caused by COVID. Previously, we were excluded. But they've only given you until Monday to do it. So if anyone's running a school camp in Victoria and they haven't seen that, it's worth putting it in. It's probably going to make a difference for us between having major struggles to reopen and being able to reopen. It's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, great. Thanks for highlighting that. I wasn't aware, and great news for
I'll copy the letter I got from Business Vic into the chat in a second.
Great, thank you so much. That's great. And yes, that the ACA one was taken from one that Christian Venues and myself submitted to the New South Wales Health Department as well. But health haven't actually gone with our COVID plan at the moment. It's still in train. However, can I say that the two ones that they refer to, the camping, caravan and camping parks and the accommodation, were used when we did our plan. So have a look at the ACA one, have a look at the New South Wales template ones, and if you're satisfied with your COVID plan and meeting both, then you'll be fine. So thank you. Any other questions, comments, or Anna?
Hi Laurie, it's Simone here from TAFE at West. I just wanted to update a couple of things just on us running trips this term. So we've just finished, I think, the 40th trip since the end of July, trying to get our students ready for term 4 so that they can work with all of you guys. I think from the practical hints and tips that I'd just like to pass on, even though people have been working on their COVID plans, is I just can't reiterate the pre-screening and being really conservative in your decision making. If anyone has any cold or flu-like symptoms, that you just eliminate them entirely, or if they develop any during the time that they're on program with you guys. Right. And also using the health website, looking at where the hotspots are and doing the pre-screening before they even hop on the bus. Now that could be done perhaps through the school or the coordinator at the school if the school was involved, but that was the thing that was so critical. And the other thing is, if you're travelling, being very mindful of where that bus is stopping and maybe having some control over where they're going to stop based on what the hotspots are doing around health. So they were things that we really implemented really strongly this term. The only person to develop cold and flu-like symptoms out there was actually me, which is really quite ironic. That was actually on our very first program, but it was good because we got to test the system as to what we do. So, yeah, we're really excited of that news. We were actually out with YouthWorks, Sam, with some of your crew yesterday at Mile Lakes when we actually got the news. And I just can't tell you how excited the staff were to hear that there was a reboot. But I totally agree that whatever we do, we need to do together because it's going to affect us all down the track.
Absolutely. Thank you for reiterating that. And that's some great tips. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, I won't reenact the dance I did yesterday. it was a great moment watching Gladys announce it. So anyone else want to speak or bring anything up that they're seeing, hearing, or worried about for the near future?
Yeah, Laurie, it's Darren from YouthWorks.
Hi, Darren.
Dropped out a bit. Hi, I might have dropped out and not heard a bit of it. Was there any, I'm just worried about, obviously, outdoor education is back, it's great, they're out and about. I'm just worried about how we actually dine them in the social distancing rules. Is there any talk about the 4 square metre rule not applying to school camps so we can dine them? Because obviously we're built for a certain number of people in our buildings, and we're now down to 4 square metres per person.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd actually like to open it up to what other people have actually put in their COVID safe plans regarding that before I speak to what's in the templates. Troy, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, look, obviously we're blessed with a bit of acreage at Outward Bound at Tharwa, and look, I'm happy to say we've actually quarantined a crew into Western Australia, so they're in day 3 of quarantine across there, and we're about to start happily operating in Western Australia for a busy season. But Tharwa being the key here, we've got a hall which we actually applied 4 square metre to, and that allowed us to have 28 people in there for social distance training, that sort of thing. We've also got exactly the same, by coincidence, in the dining hall. We aren't doing served meals at the moment. We changed to a program model, which meant that participants would be providing their own meals, and so we were going with expeditions and Duke of Edinburgh hikes, that sort of thing. But where meals are provided, they are either cooked by the smaller groups within the school group, or activity group, so they remain in a food group, and they may cook those on facilities in our enclosed cabins or in campsite meals around the site. What we're finding is, certainly for the D&V meals and the in-between days, that gathered but not together meals are going off well. But we haven't yet returned to catered, say, bain-marie meals. We did those to a point, but I don't think bain-marie is a good idea right at the moment. So we're operating. We sort of changed our model for the time, and looking forward to coming back fully, but we've still got some limitations there.
Right.
Hey Laurie, it's Dom here. Could I just make a comment on that too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just from the experience up here in Queensland when we returned, the dining was one of the biggest concerns for all outdoor ed operators. Definitely the bain-marie stuff. This is something our Chief Health Officer has been 100% clear on. There's to be no self-service up here, self-service of any meals. So you could have a staff member stand there and serve the plates and hand them to a person, but there's no way they want people sharing the same implements as far as serving, that sort of thing. So that's a huge one. That's still happening here. You know, we've been back for most of last term and, you know, that sort of thing. But the other one is the big part on the dining. We did get that dispensation from the 1 per 4 square meters just for the kids. We didn't get it for the adults. So for the adults in your dining room still need 1 per 4 square meters. But for students, kids, you know, school aged, then they could relax it as long as you could still try to have 1.5 meters distancing as much as possible. But it's a big piece of work to make sure that's understood. We use the fact that at schools they don't have to do it. So that's probably the piece of work. And I know Laurie's been working on that with that template that you mentioned, but it's a big concern. Going back to Darren's original question, it's a key part of work. Like realistically, the outdoor part of outdoor ed is the easy part compared to the accommodation and the dining requirements, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Dom, if I can just add to that, with the accommodation, obviously in a COVID period, things are pretty difficult. So what we did with our hardtop cabins was made an undertaking that cabins would be cleaned to a commercial standard within 48 hours before someone arriving to that accommodation, and then so we didn't have to clean immediately after, which actually could expose someone to a risk, but also was a fair cost, was that we actually undertook that those cabins would then be locked and not re-entered until the commercial cleaners were back in within 48 hours of the next booked accommodation users.
Yeah.
That was a way to scale that cost to what we were able to provide. We found it really important to specify what staff and teachers could and couldn't do with regard to cooking. That is, you may have a school group, and we've compartmentalised school groups down and other activity groups down to 4 people cooking groups. We've gotten additional utensils so that each group is totally self-sufficient and there's no cross-contamination possible between those. We were also fortunate that we already had a bit of kit, so we can actually take those out of service. They are washed by the participant, and then they are washed by staff again, and then they're set aside for a couple of days, so that we're creating as much time and space and cleaning between uses as possible. But I think you've just got to consider it, look to it, figure out the gaps, and figure out how your solution covers those gaps.
Great, thanks guys. Darren, how's that help?
Yeah, that helps. I think if we can't get the dispensation, then we are thinking staggered dining times. Like if we've got a dining room, I've got a dining room that holds 200, they can only hold 35 at the moment. Obviously we pack them in tight. So we're thinking staggered dining times at the moment until we can get a dispensation. It does, obviously that expands your program because you've got to allow for 2 sittings of dinner before you can go to your evening activity.
Aaron, it does more than that too. It also means you've got to have it all fully cleaned in between your seating, between your sessions. Which
so you need to have a break, don't you?
Yeah.
And
so
that break should actually, it's not just a spray and wipe break. Also, I think Dylan Jones recommended the training through 5-star training last week to a lot of members, and that training does actually cover often the dwell time, which a cleaning chemical does require, which can be 5 minutes or 10 minutes before it gets wiped off. And just on that, Darren, New South Wales Food Authority is providing a free food safety, the COVID safe food handling module. I don't have a link that I can just stick straight in. So
we've asked our guys.
You have?
We've asked our guys to fill that in. Yeah. So all our food service staff will complete that before starting work again.
Great. Just on that, I'll include that in this the newsletter that's going to go out today, Troy. So thank you for bringing that up and make sure that's in there. That's great. There was a question there from Kat just in relation to feedback from schools. I know some of you online have already spoken to schools as of yesterday. What has been the feedback? Are they coming back? Are they scheduling it in? What's the feeling?
I might jump in there, Laurie, as a school, and so we were very excited by that news, and we hadn't actually cancelled all of our programs for term 4. We only cancelled one, which was week 1 next term, and it was impossible for us to acceptably plan with everything up in the air. So even though it was running off our campus here in Jindabyne. So we've been really keen, we've been really excited, but from a school's point of view, what we're doing is we're still meeting to assess, okay, what are the implications of this in regards to us and our camp provider? And I was straight on the phone to our camps provider to run through that as well. So, and I suspect they've been hammered by phone calls of people trying to get bookings back. So, so we're in a great position where we've got our bookings locked in. We've got 8 and 10 about to go. But we're just having that really open conversation about what's your COVID plan? Here's our COVID plan, and we're sharing, and we're just working, really communicating that between the two parties, and we're very excited to get our kids out again.
Wonderful. That's great. Thanks so much for contributing that, David. That's really great to hear. Anyone else? I saw Mel said, yep, they're coming back. Brad, you've been hammered. I laugh because I'm really excited about that. Sorry. Great positive response. So it seems like they're all coming back, which is just great news. So guys, look, it is right on 11, but if you want to hang back and just chat about any of the problems that you may have seen with any capacity issues or anything you need from your peak body right now, please hang back and we'll have a chat. But great news. This is great to just get back into some sort of normality, as much as we've still got to play it safe. We've still got asymptomatic people out there, I'm sure, with COVID. So we can't be complacent in this. We've got to take all the precautions because I think, Dom, you put it beautifully. We don't want to be the next cruise line. So please, if everyone just takes the care that they need, let's get everyone back out into the outdoors. And Mel, yes, there's social distancing for sleeping. At the moment, it's recommended still at the 1.5 meters. So, and 4 square meter rule, just to go off the point that Darren made, it is recommended where physically possible is the words that they use in the plans. But take all the precautions to try to make sure that you're maximising that space and that distance. Thank you, guys. I'll hang back. Wish you all a very good weekend and a great break if you're having one, or school holiday programs. Let's go for it. We'll see you next week. So thanks, everyone. And just so you know, I'm in my school uniform today. my son's school uniform because it's his last day of year 12 today, and I went and embarrassed him at school. So I wanted to send him off because the school couldn't do anything because of COVID. So us parents got together and decided to embarrass our kids. So that's why I'm in a tie and a school uniform. So thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
I've got something to add to the catering type one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Dave. Yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah.
I think I think the starting point for any catering is got to be, in our sector, it's got to be what the restaurants and cafes and hotels are allowed to do in the state. Yeah. And then we've got to look at where the problem, because that's what generally has been accepted for catering hygiene staff. How to deal with things. And
really
we've got to look at where there are issues and get formal exemptions if we can, unless there's some special exemption, say for under 18s or whatever from a government authority. Because we start making our own minds up, we could well get caught.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually surprised how relaxed some of the guidelines are, particularly in the caravan park template that's there. So I think our guys have done over and above that, which is great, because I think, anything they do is certainly protecting their risk. But it's a really good point. We've got to look at where things have gone bad and improve that.
Laurie, on that too, that's exactly what we did. We incorporated some of the retail food services stuff into our plan and then modified it with the Chief Health Officer's permission up here for the kids. So that was a really important part of it. It is a really big piece of work that people need to consider that aspects. And the other one, I'm not sure if Mel's still on the course, you just asked about the sleeping stuff. Different operators are sort of doing that slightly differently too, because you can have it as 1.5 meters between beds, but some people are still using bunk beds, but getting the kids to not have their heads at the same end of the bunks and stuff to separate their heads a little bit. So there's different ways people seem to be doing that. So and even within tents is the other one that came up quite a bit early on.
Yeah, cool. Mel, does that answer your query, or do you have any other concerns? I don't know whether she hasn't got a mic on or...
No, that's good. Thanks, Laurie.
No worries. Can you do that easily?
The social distancing.
Yeah.
Accommodation. Yeah, it'll just, it just limits the numbers, but
Mel, under our plan, sort of like the Laurie had for Queensland operators, the 1 per 4 square metres was relaxed for kids, but not for adults again. So for adults on the program, they had to be given enough space to have 1 per 4 square metres, which for a lot, it meant solo use of a room or a cabin. And then depending on how big it is, then they might be able to share with 2 people instead of where it might have been 4 in the past. But for kids, it was, you could have more kids in there, but still trying to get that 1.5 meters. So that's what we've got to at the moment. But just today, our Premier and our Chief Health Officer have just announced that for outdoor activities in Queensland, it's down to 1 per 2 square meters. So that's as of next week, which is a really interesting development that they've only just announced at 9:30 today. So
Is that rule for the kids that it's relaxed? Is that for intents as well? Because I didn't actually think the social distancing was in for the tents, but you just said, Laurie, that it was.
Yes, absolutely. That it's recommended. So the templates actually recommend social distancing in all places that they're doing the activity where possible. So obviously you can try to manage it as best as you can. I mean, I think what they take into consideration is when you're doing activities, there's certain times where you cannot have that 1.5 meters between them, but it's recommended wherever physically possible to try to.
That certainly applies up here. So for any sleeping arrangements, it's where possible, the 1.5 meters as well. And some people have gone to just individual kids in tents as well, and others are still having shared tents, but trying to separate them a bit as well. So
yeah, well, that was our plan. Our plan was to scrap the 2-man tents, just use the 3-man tents, but put 2 students in. And then with our larger, we have 8 or 10-man tents, person tent, and we're putting sort of 4 or 5 in.
Yeah. Yeah, so as long as you're satisfied, you've got enough of that distance between them, that's at least that 1.5 meters, yeah, you'll be fine. Great. Any other comments, questions, ideas?
The only comment I've really got.
Yeah, Brad, go for it.
The only comment I've really got is, considering how much New South Wales Health hasn't worked with you regarding a COVID safe plan, getting a government body to actually give special dispensation on like what Dom's been able to achieve through QORF and all that sort of stuff, I don't really see that forthcoming at any point in time. It's going to be up to your own level of risk assessment and what you can necessarily do within those guidelines. And I understand that the AHPPC doesn't recommend adult-style social distancing for students, which means that from a dining room perspective, then you may not necessarily have to do your 1 per 4 square metre, but definitely for the adult dining rooms and keeping the beds as in your 1.5 metres from pillow to pillow is what you can from your students. People on the top bunk, because there's a barrier in between them, should satisfy that type of arrangement. And I think the only guidelines they gave was keep an idea of the community transmission on the areas. So for someone like us, Coffs Harbour may not have to be the same density as someone from southwestern Sydney than what they do. So they really haven't helped in the whole process. So I don't believe them offering any further help moving forwards. That's why a lot of what we did, we grabbed a lot of from QORF, because Dom's done an amazing job and we're able to actually have debate with New South Wales Health. So I've used a lot of what his guidelines have been in order to try and create our COVID plan.
Brilliant. No, that's great. And you're dead right, Brad. I think when you look at all the different states and how they've handled this generically, you know, there's obviously a very much of a stricter approach in Queensland to many of the others, but we've taken the approach of let's just manage it as it comes, and we haven't been given strict guidelines to go by, except obviously, you know, the lockdowns of not actually accepting schools. But, you know, it's been really interesting seeing a bit of a relaxed approach in that, because, yeah, the guidelines are very, like, I looked at the Service New South Wales templates and I thought, wow, we're going over and above this, and that's a great thing because we're protecting ourselves. But, you know, why haven't we got that coming through into those templates? I hear you. and thanks to Dom for sharing his content, because I think it's great that we can use that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no worries. Well, my other Brad's just given me a phone call, so he's obviously chasing me.
Okay, no worries. We'll let you go. And did Rod clarify your question earlier?
Really, no, because basically it's being put all onto the actual provider to negotiate with the school on what they believe is acceptable or not.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
that's what it sounds like from our point of view.
Yeah.
Which, like you say, if we use something like QORF, something has been negotiated in good faith and the best aspect of all people is probably a good framework to try and use.
Correct. I think the biggest feedback I can give you, or the tips I can give you, is answer all the questions your school's going to have, and that will certainly help you. There's no strict guidelines if they're coming back with that. It's just they've got to look at their own risk assessment and they've got to look at your COVID plan and be satisfied.
Yeah. No worries. Easy done. Well, thank you very much for that, Laurie. Thank you for everything.
No worries. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
No worries. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye. Sorry, Dave, did I cut you off before?
No, I was going to bring up something else. Have you guys seen the Red Cross First Aid app that's available? I got it. I didn't notice it till Bushwalking Australia popped it out. It's called the Red Cross First Aid app, and it's a very good guide for a person that's got an incident, an accident out in the field. You know, it's got lots of information, and that's probably something to send out as a bit of positive, useful tool, particularly at the moment where getting first aid courses is a bit shaky. Yeah. But
yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
So I just downloaded
No,
it.
great. I
This morning
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Cool. Awesome. Anyone else want to chat?
Hey, Paul from Somerset. Just
Hey, Paul.
question for Dom. How you going? Thanks, Laurie, for everything. Awesome work.
Oh,
Dom,
thanks,
in Queensland, all good. One of the things I'm struggling with at the moment is obviously schools not requiring to socially distance in their school context, and then being brought into a camp environment, and we're trying to enforce that, and it seems to be pushing shit uphill, proverbially. Is there still, how's that panned out in Queensland?
I didn't really want to say this before, Paul, but not well at the start. So the schools, a lot of schools, teachers particularly, going, what are you talking about? We don't have to do this stuff. And our operators having to say, yes, you do. When you're on my site, you've got to follow my plan. The thing we've had, which is a real positive, is, and this came about more because of the return to sport, which we piggybacked on a bit, because it's through our sport and recreation. So they brought in a change that you didn't have to, or you don't have to have physical distancing when you're on the field of play. And the field of play is when you're actually engaged in the sport or recreation activity. So when you're doing a climbing wall activity or any actual activity, you can have physical contact. Like otherwise, basically all the contact sports would not be happening. So they've brought that in, which means once you're engaged in the activity, it's all bets are off, and that's for adults as well as kids. But the physical, as soon as you're off the field of play, they have to return to the social distancing, physical distancing. It's still difficult because even this actually applies for school sport. When they're in the school setting, they have to worry about physical distancing and they can play their sport. When they're playing club sport as a kid up here, they have to do physical distancing until the game starts. Then once the game finishes and they're off the field of play, they've got to go back to the physical distancing. It just doesn't make sense. But that's the situation they've got, where education has sort of made up their own rules a little bit, I think, and they got away with it. So it's been tough. And the hardest one, I think, of all has been particularly with teachers coming into that setting where they're expected to understand those rules and they're completely different to the rules they're used to at schools. So it is really tough.
So worth trying to just on the front foot with that, and just communicate that out.
I think it's just a matter of saying,
say, hey,
yeah, my site, you have to follow my rules. This is the situation in which we can run school camps safely for all comers, but we need you to follow these rules. And that's the biggest thing, that the operators who've got on the front foot, like you said, and communicated all of that with their schools beforehand. And some of them have now got literally a template email that they send off to their schools to say, here's what you're going to have to be. We know this is different to the normal school setting, but here's a few dot points. And please contact us if you want any clarification on it. But they're doing that. Like the schools, the school camp operators are being quite proactive about it. And that's probably the biggest advice I could give you.
Awesome, mate. That's excellent advice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And probably the other one, Paul, is if you did want it, like some of those operators,